All right, we're on. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Richard Capone. I'm the CEO of Let's Go Learn. And then we have Christina Barragan, who is our customer success specialist covering Oregon. And then we have Linda Zablotsky, who is our educational consultant covering Oregon as well. And then, of course, we have Dr. Kurt Hewlett, who is our special education MTSS expert. He's out of Texas. So we have the whole team here today. We're going to be showing you some stuff. So with that said, we wanted to talk a little bit about MTSS and some of the stuff we have coming down the line in terms of behavior tracking. But the first thing I did want to share is we did last year add formative testing. And so I know most sites understand that we have Dora and Adam, which are our reading and math assessments, but I know not all sites have implemented formative testing, but you guys have access to it. And so I'm just going to have like Christina show it for 5 minutes if someone understands it. So I'll let you go ahead and share your screen, Christina, and show formative. And also, you know, it's a few, just you guys. So feel free to ask questions and turn off your mic if you want. Just interrupt us.
Great. So as Richard mentioned, we did add formative assessments this year, and you can find those in your test queue. And you have them available on the individual student level or the entire class level. So if you come in here to manage class queue, I like to think of it as kind of an upside down triangle. You have your most broad assessment at the top, your full comprehensive. So that would be where you'd want to start to get your baseline data and see where your students are coming in. And then you have your subtest below that. So that's a little bit more focused in, let's say that you gave your Adam at the beginning of the year, and now you taught a unit on geometry and you want to see how the students are doing. You can go in and use this filter search to search up the geometry subtest. And then you'll see that we offer, you know, the Adam assessment or the DOMA pre-algebra geometry subtest. So you can get a little more focused, break up that full Adam assessment into the smaller chunks. And then at the very bottom, you're going to find your specific skills and concepts quizzes. So these are going to be just 3 to 10 questions. So let's say within geometry, you're looking just at 3D shapes. You could come in and search 3D, and then you'll see all of the quizzes that we offer so you can test on a specific skill. And this will allow you to get updated instructional points for your students without giving them the entire assessment again. So you have that flexibility of breaking it up. The skills and concept quizzes are going to be 3 to 10 questions, and you'll get a percentage score afterwards. And the subtest diagnostics are actually going to be adaptive. So that will give you a new grade level equivalency score for your student based on how they performed. And that kind of provides that consistency from teacher to teacher when you're progress monitoring. Instead of, you know, using a teacher created quiz or a textbook quiz, you have everybody on the same consistent platform. And then as you're, oh, go ahead.
And I'll interrupt real quickly. Kurt, could you go ahead and give everyone a little bit of an overview of why we developed and added this, just from the special education and the tier 2, 3 perspective?
Yeah. Essentially, starting with the MTSS, when we have to provide more intensive supports, then we're going to be providing more instruction. And of course, we need more instructional data. So we moved to a system where we could assess on a daily basis if necessary. The other area is, of course, once a kiddo goes into special education and they have annual goals or short-term objectives, then we have to, by law, report out on the progress the child is making every 6 or 9 weeks, depending on the reporting period for the school district. And we wanted to, of course, support the special ed students in the process. So again, you're able to formatively assess and track performance on goals as well.
So I know, especially in your guys' environment, this is really key, right? You even talked about how sometimes you could do the baseline, but then the student may not be in the treatment facility or center for long, and they're out, and maybe you only work with them for a few days. So if you could do short quizzes, you could test them, and all of this data flows into the same data set. So Christine, I'll let you explain that.
Yes, so as Richard mentioned, all of this is going to flow into the same data set. So here on your Active Pulse ELA or Active Pulse Math, if the student takes the assessment on one of those subtests or skills quizzes and they get a higher score, these scores here will update, so that way you're able to easily track their progress. In addition to that, you're able to go in and see their specific scores. So if I go into subtests, I can see here, I can pull up one of these students and look at their scores. Let's see, this student took 3 subtests. So if I'm looking at multiplication of whole numbers, I can view it and I can even get down into the questions that they answered and really pinpoint what, you know, they had mastery here on multiplication of 3-digit numbers by 1-digit numbers, but then with 2-digit and 3-digit numbers by 2-digit numbers, they struggled. There's no mastery, so that's their instructional level.
And that's a scope and sequence, by the way. So when we show that level 7, 8, 9, those are sort of like raw section scores. So you're in theory, you're teaching different things in order. So teachers are trained how to do that. So
yes. And so as we said, this those subtests are going to give you a new grade level score, and this grade level score will update here in your active pulse math. In addition to that, with those skills quizzes, you're also able to go in and see exactly what the student did. You can see their scores on each quiz, and you can see what questions they answered correctly, what questions they answered incorrectly, so that way you can really target your instruction and see what they need help with. And when you're progress monitoring, since it all feeds into the same data set, we offer this progress monitoring feature where you can compare your assessments week over week, or, you know, as they take those specific quizzes and things like that. It's just as easy as going in, selecting the assessments you want to compare, and then charting them to see their progress over time. So.
Yeah. So any questions from our small, intimate audience about this? Okay. I know a lot of people, you all have access to this. So if you don't know how to do this and you want to use it, you'll be able to contact Christina and we could set up a training, you know, or Julie or Sam, and we could try to set something up. But now this sets the stage for the next step. Okay. So this summer, or what we're doing is we've already built a system for tracking additional information, right? And this additional information could be MTSS information like behavioral tracking. We already have a little survey system where sometimes you're tracking stuff like how, you know, how's a student, how ready am I learned today? That's what some of the students can answer this little quiz every time they, or survey every time they log in. But we're gonna be building this out. Now, here's the tough part. This really has to be parameterized for you guys because every organization has different MTSS tracking variables. So while we have the survey in place, we don't know actually what you all need. Now it's easy, like when Kurt's been working with Tucson and Houston ISD, they're a single organization and they say, these are what we're tracking, okay? You guys are a little different because you're not one organization, you're like 50, right? So that's why we wanted to get input on this. I'm gonna share my screen now. And unfortunately, I don't have anything as polished. What I have is Excel spreadsheets or Excel spreadsheet looking documents. So let me just bring this up here and enlarge just a little bit. And so Kurt, as I butcher things, you could go ahead and correct me, all right?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so the idea here is that we have these additional behaviors you want to be tracking. So when you are logged into the Let's Go Learn interface, there is a place to take notes. And I don't know if you all know about that, but there is an area where you can actually literally take notes on students. There's also an area where you can look at the surveys if students, if you're tracking like how ready am I to learn today, you can see how they've been responding. But this is an area where you're going to be able to say, okay, I need to track a behavior today, and it'll be a pick list. So let's say the student left the classroom. There was an altercation with a student, yelled in class, right? So you can have different behaviors, but the idea is these will be clustered based on groups. So for instance, you may suddenly say, I need to select a survey, and you may say, I'm a long-term care unit, after school intervention setting. So we can even get down to specific organizations if we have to, but these have to be sort of like pre-made surveys. And so the idea is once you select it, the teacher would be able to add different variables, right? So what was the consequence? How many times did this happen? What was the period, the intensity, duration? So Kurt, could you maybe explain this a little bit in terms of, you know, MTSS requires objective data tracking. So if you can maybe talk about that real quickly.
Yeah, so essentially the intent of the program is to do a couple things. As we work with districts around the country, what we find is a lot of districts don't even know what to track, what's of value, what's important. And basically, you know, behavior falls into two categories for the schools normally, externalizing and internalizing. And we tend to track more externalizing behaviors. So what we're identifying and giving predetermined placement for are the areas of the ABCs of behavior, the antecedent, the actual behavior, and then the consequence of that behavior. And then we're looking at the time, intensity, and duration of those behaviors. Then you have an option to select or create your own behavior and then your own metric that you want. You know, if you're doing tally marks for a number of times, if you're doing minutes, however you want to do it, you can also track. And then also there's a place to put in notes for areas such as antecedents when you have to describe what happened before the behavior. But that's a part of our goal, is to get schools at least doing the ABCs and the time, intensity, and duration of each behavior. And what we're envisioning is that schools will use this particularly with their behavior intervention plans, as well as their goals for kids with behavioral disorders, that they'll use this to track it, and hopefully it'll help improve overall intervention and response to intervention.
And part of the idea here is, you know, we're an engineering company, right? I mean, we develop software, we have assessment, we have instruction. This is something that we have built out, this survey system. And so what's made it complicated to implement is just that it requires a lot of parameterization based on the customer, right? And based on the specific facility. So what we're trying to do is get input from you all. First of all, you know, I'd love to, maybe what we could do is send out a survey after this. Is this seem interesting to you? You know, do you already have a system, you're tracking it? Would you want to track it in our system? And if you are, can you quantify it in sort of in these variables that we defined? And so that's what we're trying to do. We're doing this. This is going to happen because we have some other customers who've requested it. So the issue now is, can we also accommodate you guys, because you definitely have a different environment. Let me see. And so the other thing is, of course, once this is being tracked, let me just show you something here. This is just sort of a mocked up. This reporting is something that the teacher could look at. So for instance, verbal aggression, right? It could be something that's tracked over time, number of incidents. You could have a graph. There's obviously other stuff in there as well, intensity and different things like that, duration. But this is something that, for instance, you would be able to do, because once the data is stored in our system, we have a graphing tool that allow us to graph based on different parameters. Like I said, we already have the system, this framework in our system, but now we have to parameterize it. But I think that's sort of it. Any feedback from you guys right now? I mean, is this seem like this is something that would be helpful? Do you have already, are you tracking this? Do you have other systems you're using? Anyone from our audience want to volunteer? Not to put you on the spot, but I'm putting you on the spot.
Just small group. Sorry, I kind of stumbled in on this. I'm support for Medford School District for SBAC assessment, and I don't do much with SPED. So I saw this come on. I also support JDEP and some of the exterior programs, satellite programs.
Okay.
But I don't know anything about this. So this is like
Okay.
new information for me. And I just emailed Michelle Cleveland at Medford and said, is this something that we're interested, or are we doing this? I really don't even know. Is this an ODE program? Is this... Oh,
Sam, you want to provide some maybe quick background on how everyone is using the assessments and the instruction today?
So Teresa, this is for Let's Go Learn. Gosh, it's been maybe 8 years. Richard.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 8
Been a
years.
while.
Yeah, a while. We've had ODE purchase Let's Go Learn for JDEP, YCEP, and LTCT because of the pre and post testing. You know, with the ins and outs, and then because some of our kids, especially in Medford too, sometimes your kids go to the alt ed, or the residential program, Jackson County. So what it was when kids left one placement, they would get a post test, and when they entered another placement the next morning, they would get another pre-test. So and a kid would say, so they left on Tuesday, they get tested on Wednesday at a new site. The kids say, I just got tested yesterday at this other site. Can we just get that score or whatever? So that's why, we did the RFP and Let's Go Learn. They responded, and then at that time, they were one of the few, if only, that had online assessments with the scores being on an online database where schools could search for the history and the scores by typing in SSID or date of birth or by name. So if a kid entered Jackson County JDEP, if they were in Josephine JDEP, you just have to type in the name. Oh yeah, the kid was tested within 6 months. I'm going to use that as our pre-test. And we have to do the pre and post test because of federal Title I N&D. And we got permission to do that where a site didn't have to pre-test as long as they had a post test, as long as they said that the same assessment instrument or tool was utilized. Because you can't, you have to measure apples to apples. Like if one site was using Let's Go Learn and another site was using Dibbles, or Maps, you can't do that. You can't compare the scores. So that's why, as long as the 3 programs utilize the same assessment tool, then you can do that. So that was our vision. So that's why. But then for upcoming biennia, I didn't have time to do the RFP. I kind of wrote it out and so forth. But I hope to bring it back in 22, 23, and so forth. And when we did contract with Let's Go Learn for the assessment, we did our due diligence. We had our math psychometrician, Tom Tinkler. Remember that, Richard? He did analysis, and he did verify that he's our math guy for assessment. He said that Let's Go Learn was a good tool, but what he recommended to us was to purchase also supplemental educational materials so that, for instance, for math, a kid may have been truant or missed out on fractions. But they didn't have to go and they tested they're at Algebra 1 level. They didn't have to purchase something where you don't have to go from lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then hit fraction. Purchase something where teachers can pick and choose based on the assessment results, specific lessons or units that the kid needs to meet their deficit. So that's why after the initial, based on Dr. Tinkler's recommendation, we added the leading edge or learning edge, for.
Yeah, and that's our instructional component. So we actually have personalized learning tied into it. And just one thing I want to add to what Sam just said, the other thing I think why we were originally approved is because, we're not a summative test like MAP or STAR reading or, iReady or products like that. We are a true diagnostic. So while Christina was showing you some strand scores, everything breaks down. So if you test someone in phonics, we actually, let's say we give you a score of 2.5 mid-second grade, that ties to maybe it's diphthong. So I don't know, whatever is taught at mid-second grade, right? So every skill is tied to a score. So that way there is no, fuzziness in saying, oh, Richard got a, 798 in numbers and operations, and you have no idea what that means, right? If we're tracking, we're also always telling you why and what to do. And that's why our assessments are pretty unique. So when we rolled out this formative assessment, I mean, it's sort of interesting. This whole system is really ideal for your guys' environment. And then the interesting thing, once you have a baseline, you actually could just almost do formative tests throughout because the scores always stick with the students, for 13 years or 12 years if need be. But so there's a lot of exciting things happening. I mean, we're looking at the long term. I know there's a little bit of an RFP hiccup this year, but we're going to still, continue working and supporting you guys with Sam's help. And then, like I said, this I feel like this is a new big piece too. Anyone else? Any other feedback on? Is anyone else doing behavior tracking? Any other sites? Stephanie?
Not behavior tracking, but I have been using the testing and the edge for quite some time. And I have had those situations where I have a student that'll come from another facility, they'll have tested, and if you can get, if they have tested and it's one of the facilities that are using it, I can get it, I can actually get that information and do not have to have the student test again. And I have used the edge, the math, and the reading. You can choose the lessons, or you can actually, like the Atom, which is the math test, or the Door, which is the reading test. You can, after you've tested, you can pick the option that depending on how they did on that test, it'll automatically choose the lessons for the things that they missed. I've been using this. I like it because I can sit down with the students and actually show them what they need to work on versus the MAP score, which meant nothing. Sorry for those who have MAPs, if that's the case. I'm just saying that's what we had before, and that's different. And I am bummed that we won't have it this next year.
Well, it's not paid for by Sam, but maybe, you know, we'll work with you guys to see what kind of, you know, local budgets you can use to get it and continue the continuity of the program. So we want to work with you guys too, you know.
You can use your JDEP funds. You know, if you talk with Ben Lapine and John's, you know, incoming, you could use your contract funds.
So, and it depends when it'll run too. I'm sure that has something to do with it. But I'm bummed because even if we use that, doesn't that mean that we are not going to have available all the data from the other YCEPs, JDEPs, and LTC?
No, you still will, because we're going to keep you still as a linked account.
Oh, that's good news.
Yeah, we're going to.
That was useful.
Keep the continuity. Yeah, of course. That's, you guys needed that, right? And like I said, you know, we've been working with you guys so long, so it's great to get more. But Christina is working more closely with the site, so definitely reach out to Christina. She's available, and that way, you know, part of the difficulty is it's hard for us as a software company to know everyone's individual needs. So it is good for us to get that input. You know, our goal as a company is not just to, you know, get into as many sites as fast as possible. Our goal is to help children. So that means going all the way, right? You can't just give someone a tool, like my car analogy with people, hey, you can't just give someone a car with 3 tires. You need all 4 tires if you're actually gonna get somewhere. So we want to give you a tool and try to take it all the way. And so, so do you do any, Stephanie, do you do any kind of behavioral tracking, or you guys don't need to?
The facility does behavioral tracking.
Okay. But you don't necessarily do that. Okay.
That would
All
be-
right. I mean,
And
that's
just to
good.
let you know, when I have to skittle daddle at 2:30, so if you see me out of here, it's because I have another Zoom meeting I have to go to at that time.
No problem. I think we're going to be wrapping up pretty quickly. Does anyone else have any questions? Or Sam, do you have any questions about clarifying what we tried to explain? Hopefully I explained it well. Oh, yes, Candace.
And this is Candace from Springfield, well, the Child Center in Springfield. We love Let's Go Learn. We do use another program, Credible, for our behavioral tracking because, you know, under mental health stipulations, we have to use that. But what we have found, the only hiccup, I think, that feedback I'm getting about Let's Go Learn is, for instance, when you have a child whose ability level is maybe 1st or 2nd grade and they're a 5th grader, but they're reading at a younger age, the window that they look at and the formula that the Let's Go Learn uses seems to put them down back into like the 1st grade level. And they say, oh, this is too easy, this is baby stuff. They don't like the way the questions that they're given. It would be nice if it could be, yes, we have a child at 1st grade level, but we're going to put them at a 5th grade age bracket and then have the material look a little more mature, even though it's really simple and we know it is.
Yeah.
That was the only thing. We get some of the older kids go, I'm not going to do this. This is baby stuff, even if they don't know.
And you're talking about the content, right? The instruction.
Talking about the content.
Yeah.
And
So actually, yeah, go ahead, Stephanie.
Oh, I was going to say, I just tell them, it looks a little cheesy.
Yeah.
I preface it, to be honest.
Yeah.
It looks a little cheesy. I know it looks younger, but the information is good. Just try to look at packs that it looks cheesy. That's what I tell them.
I actually we're contracting with some artists to help create a 3-minute video introducing Edge to older kids. And I think one of the ways we're going to push it is, look, you all get gaps, people develop gaps, but we know that music, animation, and graphics and catchy tunes help our brains learn better. And, you know, there'll be animation showing a brain and doing things like that. So it'll be like an animation style. And so I think we're going to produce, that might be helpful, because I think, you know, when you show them, say, oh, yeah, of course, I love music, right? So, yeah, so when there's this tune that's sort of goofy, it actually helps you learn difficult stuff. So hopefully that's going to be out pretty soon. And we're going to try to stick it in prominent places. So maybe we might even have the students, when they first do Edge at the beginning of the year, it forces them to learn it. Or you could play it for them. Say, hey, I want you to, you're going to be doing Edge. Let me just show this video. So we're going to do that. That might help because you know what you're talking about, other people have the same issue. So we're going to do our best to try to see how we could engage the student and bring them into the fold and understand why we're using music. Yeah, and you're right.
We love the diagnostic part of it and the reports that it prints out. Those are invaluable. So I'm disappointed that we might end up having to lose those for a little while, but hopefully we'll be back or work something out.
Yeah. Okay. No, that sounds great. Yeah, we're definitely, sorry, there's a chat message too. So did you want me to talk about pricing, Sam, or anything like that, or no?
Sure.
Oh, you're on mute.
Pricing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And then if you can tell everybody, like, you know, one good thing that Let's Go Learn has not done is they haven't raised their price. You know, ever since, you know, from 8 years ago, they've honored that price and they haven't, no cost of living or, you know, inflation, it's been static. So, well, I don't know how much it's going to be for, you know, moving forward.
So so it's going to be basically a per student price. And so we're going to keep the prices, and in fact, we're adjusting it. So it's going to be at, or if not below. So we're going to keep it really competitive for the sites. I'm trying to work out how we can cover PD through SAM. So we'll see that, because if we could do something like the PD, sort of, you know, unlimited PD training whenever you need it, if we could do that at a organizational level, that would be great. And then you guys just worry about, hey, how many students am I trying to serve? So we'll, like I said, we're going to wrap that up in the next few days. Or a week at most, but just be aware that's going to come down. So yeah, you will have to talk to some of the people who do purchasing for yourself or your organization and see if maybe they could, you know, they'll have to budget for it this next year. But we'll do our best to work with everyone. Like I said, at the end of the day, we don't want to disrupt your workflow too much. So. Okay, I think that's all I got. Linda, Kurt, or Christina, do you guys have anything else you want to add, or I left off?
Actually, I heard a comment earlier about sharing the reports with the students, and I love to hear that. My background is I taught early childhood special education, so I love that teachers can share our reports and Let's Go Learn with the students, and they understand their progress that they're making or their roadmap of instruction.
And I do know a few of our sites have used the function where with a click of a button, the student reports can be translated into Spanish. You know, I remember some of our sites have used that function.
Good. All right. Okay. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up. So thank you so much. And Sam, I'll talk to you about maybe trying to share this with other people, and maybe we'll do a survey to figure out if people, you know, have this. I know some of you already are tracking it on your own separately, which is fine, but it's good to get the input if somebody wants to use it. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody.
Take care.